Yo, yo, yo. This is candibknittin. I'm Candy B. I be knitting. And today is going to be a kind of a double header. I'm of two minds today. The first thing I want to talk about today is June 29th. And so we're almost at the halfway point of 2024. And I just have this natural clock inside of me that's like, okay, time is passing. What can I finish in the second half of the year? Where am I at with the things I've been working on? There's some things that I've been working on that I'm kind of like, okay, I'm ready to wrap this up now. I'm ready to move on to the next stage of my life. And so I'm going to kind of give you a quick and dirty of the projects I'm working on now. They're kind of close to some critical points, and I can kind of move on to the next half of the year with a plan in mind. So the first thing I want to show you is my quilt I've been working on. It is called Kagans Quilt by Carolyn Bloom, and there are 4 motifs that are sewn together. And so the first one were these squares, and this one took me the longest just because it's 16 squares that I did individually. And once I started like really committing to this project, it started to kind of go by pretty quickly, and I've been kind of making peace with the idea of seaming things and how that's going to look. And so knitted all of these up, washed them, blocked them, and now, boom. And I'm pretty content with myself. I use my Vogue knitting book to look up how to, the pattern says to mattress stitch, but mattress stitching can be very different depending on if, these are 4-sided shapes, and so I'm working with cast on edges against cast on edges, selvage edges against selvage edges, and then a mixture of those. And so I talked about this before, how there's kind of, you get almost like a buckling sometimes because your row gauge can differ from your stitch gauge. So that's this. I actually did take my time with this. I took apart some seams, put them back together. The only thing I would do differently is I would have the pattern says to just use, she has a white color she uses throughout the pattern and a natural color, and she says to just use that color to do all of your seaming, but I decided to use my ends so that I would save a little bit of time also on weaving in my ends, so I use that to seam. And in some places when I was super generous with my weaving or with my ends, it was more than enough, like about like this length, I was able to get the entire side seamed. But then you have ends that are a little bit shorter where I had to, there were a few places where I had to bring in some extra scrap yarn in order to finish the seaming. And so I would have been more diligent with planning my ends if I was going to use the ends to sew up the blanket. But for the most part, it worked out fine. I was reading some guidance because I'm also working on those dolls that involve seaming, and there's not a lot of guidance in the pattern, but I was reading online. It said to leave probably about 3 times the length of your the edge that you're going to seam as an end, if you're going to use your end to seam, which is quite generous. But also I know that I'm going to be kind of tight on yarn, so I was kind of tight with the seaming. But people talk about like yarn chicken, and my idea is that if I'm playing yarn chicken, that probably means I don't have enough yarn, so I might as well just do it the right way, do it the traditional way, because somewhere I'm going to be lacking. If I shorten my ends, that means I have to get that much more scrap yarn in order to be able to seam it up. So if I need more yarn, I just need more yarn, and that's the long and short of it. And so I really jammed on seaming this up, and so this whole thing is done. It is hand knit, so I'm never gonna get like perfect right angles, but I think I did a really good job for someone that is not well versed in seaming. Now I'm pretty well versed in seaming, and I have a lot more confidence in seaming now. And then I moved on to the next motif, which took me pretty much like a week. Like like compared to knitting a bunch of individual squares and washing them and blocking them and planning them out. The other thing too was you can see that the kind of star that I have planned here, I was very meticulous making sure everything was facing the right way, because it would have been a shame if I knitted this thing up and seamed it and my angles were not correct. But yeah, you can see how I did the star here. So this is the second motif in the blanket, and this involves 4 squares, and this is not seamed. This is all one piece using short rows, and you kind of just knit around, and then you use a provisional cast on and you close it up at the end. Where's my provisional? This was my provisional cast on, and then you graft the edges together. The grafting was interesting. There are some twisted stitches in here, but I don't want to overthink this, because this is going to be a blanket that I'm going to throw on my bed. And so this part is done, and you can kind of see in the pattern she tells you the stitch counts are not gonna line up, but in the end it's going to you just block it to a similar size, and then you figure out when you're seaming how you're gonna seam everything together. So this is the number 2 one. Once again, this is Happy Place yarn from Hobie, and so this will get these 2 are actually opposing corners, and then there's 2 more. And so the next 2 I have, if you can see here, I have this one where there's diagonals running, and then I have this one that's a chevron with some triangles. And at this point I'm kind of weighing my yarn, seeing what colors I have left, and I really want, in the pattern she tells you to do the chevron next, but I'm thinking I'm gonna do the stripes next. But I'm gonna weigh my yarn and see how much of each color I have left and what I can kind of get away with. And I don't know, I might end up ordering more yarn. I don't know yet, but I'm definitely gonna weigh and think about, because you can see this one has thicker and thinner, so I have to figure out what my main color is gonna be there. I don't know. Yeah, I gotta weigh, and I gotta do some math, and I gotta do some planning. I also might end up ordering more colors of this yarn. Or probably the best thing to do would be to order more of, I have the almond color, which is a white color that I'm going to use to do an I-cord edge over the whole blanket, and so I might order more of that, so then I have like just a neutral that'll go with anything, instead of ordering like more of the teal, and teal only goes with so many colors. Also, this is going to go across my bed, and so now I'm getting an idea of, now that I have 2 squares done, I have an idea of how big this is going to be. And so if this is half the blanket, and then I have another half, do I want it to be bigger? I don't know. I have to figure it out. Of course, I still have to wash and block this one. The only thing about this, knitting in the, I guess not in the round, but knitting around the motif, I did end up with like a hole in the middle, and I'm just going to block it and then sew it up after I block it. That's the only note there. I know you can probably see the hole there. But it's gonna be pretty sizable, but I also have a king size bed, and I have, a buddy in the bed with me every night, and so we'll see if we end up like fighting over this blanket. I might end up needing to make it a little bit bigger. So that's that. I'm feeling good about that. This is like my big long-term, I started this in like October of last year, and now that I've picked up some momentum on it, I'm feeling a little bit better about it being a long-term project, so I'm not super pressed to move on to the next motifs, but it would be nice to have this in the fall and winter on my bed. But as long as I'm like making progress, I'm pretty happy with that. And the fact that this was the thing that was holding me back, was all the squares and the measuring and the seaming. And so the next couple of motifs are going to be, like I said, this took me like a week to do. Mostly it's going to be, if I do the math and get everything weighed and really think about the direction going forward, it shouldn't be a big deal to finish that by the end of 2024. The next kind of project that I am at kind of a critical point with is my Pouf cardigan. This was chilling for a while because I wanted to put the collar on, and so I steam blocked it first, had to steam it, dried it, and then really think about how I wanted to do the collar. I thought about doing like a double knit thing, but I picked up all my stitches last night, and I had such a time picking up all my stitches because these are all single yarns held double. And so just trying to get into 4 strands of single yarn and stabbing into the fluff of the yarn was a pretty frustrating thing. So I'm like, I'm just gonna follow the pattern and do a 1x1 rib. They have you do a this is Pouf by Beata Jezek of Hedgehog Fibers, and she has you pick up in a for every 3 stitches pick up 2 stitches. And so I've gone around the edge, and for some reason, I don't know if this ever happens to y'all, where you're working on something and it's like you've never done it before. Like, I've picked up stitches, I know how to pick up stitches, but I was just having such a time. I don't know if it was because I had just gotten off work and I was like, oh, I'll just do this and it'll be really quick and easy, and next thing you know, I had to unpick it and pick it back up so many times, and I've just now picked up all the stitches. I'm going to go back and count again just to make sure I have relatively the same amount on each side. It's not going to be perfect because I'm dealing with thirds, and I'm dealing with, a brain that's not, on its A game, but I can at least try to get it kind of similar. The first time I did it, I ended up with like 10 extra stitches on this side, and I think I have like 2 extra stitches now, and 1 or 2 is fine. That's what I expect when you're dividing stitches in thirds. But I'm gonna kind of start on this, and I'm already anticipating once I start on it, I might have to rip it back out and just kind of keep going, and because it's one of those kind of trial and error things that you're not really gonna know until you get into it and you get a couple of inches. And the fact that it is like what is it, probably 250 stitches I have picked up on here at least. It's going to take some time to get a length of fabric that I can look at and check my progress on. But assuming that I count these again and I have the amount of stitches that I want, I'm going to forge ahead. And once that's done, I should be in good shape to do the sleeves. And I wanted to do the collar first because the collar is going to kind of change the way the sweater hangs, and I want to be very intentional with the length of my sleeves. The pattern is relatively bare bones, and it calls for like a kind of a bishop sleeve, which I don't think I'm gonna do because I don't want a whole bunch of extra fabric, and so I really want it to be as close to its final form as possible before I do the sleeves, so I can really plan what I want to do. So that's that. I'm gonna keep going with that, and hopefully in another week or 2, I got some time off here in the United States. We have the July 4th holiday coming up, and so I'll have some time off from work, and that's always a good time to do stuff like that. Stuff like I was saying the other night, I was trying to pick up stitches, and I just was kind of completely done from work and stuff, and it's nice to have some time where I've gotten a good night's sleep, I got my coffee, I'm chilling, and I don't know where to go, and I'm not feeling so rushed or panicked to get it right and get it perfect, because that's when I start making mistakes, and that's when I start getting frustrated with myself. If I go into a project knowing, hey, you might do an inch of ribbing on 250 stitches, and you might have to rip the whole thing out. If I mentally prepare myself for it, it's a much smoother experience. Last but certainly not least, speaking of seaming, I am now at the point, I didn't even realize this, I kind of, I call it, I guess, a hack or whatever. I blasted through the second doll for my other child. I looked up today and I was like, oh, I'm already on the clothes. That means I need to start steaming these so I can seam these together. I have all the body parts made for this doll, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I did that. And so yeah, probably tomorrow I'm going to get these kind of laid out and do some steaming. The thing that I've kind of tricked myself into, I told myself, you can only work on this on the weekends. And the minute I tell myself something, the minute I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do the opposite. So it was like, it made me want to work on it more, because it's like, oh, you only have the weekend to work on it. You can't work on it during the week. And so kind of mentally making rules for myself can sometimes influence me to get a move on. It felt like, oh, this is an exclusive project. I can only work on it on the weekends. Oh, how lucky am I? So it's going to be, she's almost like got like a little onesie on. It's like this is the body, and then she's got little striped legs, and then she's got her arm, and this is her little hand. Her boots are actually attached. That's the thing that really saved me time. The last doll I made, the shoes were separate, and the shoes had separate straps you had to sew onto it, and it was just a whole ordeal. But this is like all one piece, and then you just sew up the back. And she's got little booties that go on it. Super cute. So the only thing I have left, I have a sweater. She's got shorts and a bag, and then she's got 2 braids. And I'm feeling pretty. I'm doing much better than I did the first time around. I'll tell you that much. I figured out how I did the body in the round. I did the arms and legs flat because I know you can do in the round 2 at a time, but it actually wasn't that big of a deal. And now that I'm a pro at mattress stitching, it's not that big of a deal to do it flat. Mostly it's going to be, making the face and all that stuff. And the stuffing and all that jazz. And this is her little head. And so you put the face on the head, you sew up the back of the head, you actually graft the top of the head together, and then she'll have 2 little braids. Yeah, so probably 2 or 3 more weekends of this, and we'll be good to go. We do have some plans next weekend, so maybe not next weekend, but maybe definitely by the end of the summer, definitely. I'm actually, surprisingly enough, I'm making her little sweater now, and I do actually enjoy making the doll clothes. There's a certain sense of satisfaction from making a very tiny sweater very quickly. And maybe because I'm more familiar with making sweaters, like, making a long leg doesn't translate to a whole lot of other things, So that's the state of knitting. I said I was of 2 minds. The second thing I want to talk about, it is the end of June going into July, and that is Tour de Fleece season, which is, don't get me to line, I do not know anything about cycling. But allegedly there's a big old bike race going on. I don't care about the bike race. Tour de Fleece is a time where people in conjunction with the Tour de France do spinning, because the spinning of the bicycle, the spinning of the spinning wheel, the spinning of the drop spindle, etc., etc. I've kind of shied away from doing it because, 1, I'm a relatively new spinner, but also 2, I don't know anything about cycling. So I was like, oh, are we gonna like watch the race? Because I don't know anything. I know about I was about to call him Neil Armstrong, Lance Armstrong, and that was like 20 years ago. I don't know. But it seems like a lot of fun, and it seems like people just kind of do it just because it's about spinning. I don't really know of anyone who, I know like when it started, it was about the Tour de France, but I think now it's just a time to get together and spin. And also I was kind of nervous too, because there's like teams, and I'm just like, are we competing against each other? Like, do I have to like turn in homework? But it seems to be just kind of like, you just challenge yourself to do what you want to do. And it's a time to kind of just socialize and make friends. That's the way it's been explained to me. And that's my entry point into it. So I have joined a team. I'm on team Mohair for the Dame, which is Wool for the Dame and Green Goat Ranch. I actually wasn't familiar with Wool for the Dame, but I'm looking at her Instagram and she seems pretty cool. But you guys know I'm a big fan of Green Goat Ranch. And so I was like, okay. And it's just like, there's a Facebook page, there's a Ravelry group, and you just show your progress, show what you're working on. If I had known I was going to do it, I would have made better plans, but I really don't have any like goals. I'm not spinning for any big projects. I'm mostly just trying to spin every day. Speaking of spinning, I guess I'm going to say drum carting counts because you're cranking, and there's a pedal on the bike, and there's So one of my big goals is to do a lot of fiber prep during this time. I have all of this fleece, and I've gotten all of the really nice locks out of it and done a lot of prep, getting like all the locks and having all the locks lay the right way, and now I'm kind of left with some second cuts. I'm left with some stuff that maybe I was a little impatient when I was washing it, and so it's like kind of a jumbly mess. And so I am kind of working on doing something with this. I started off doing hand carding, and now I'm working on my drum carder, and I'm just gonna try to make bats out of this and try to clean it up a little bit and get it in a state where it's a little bit uniform and a little bit more ready to be spun. So that's my big goal. Other things I have going on spinning wise. This is Coopworth, by the way, and so I told y'all I got all the nice locks out of it, and so I have been working on practicing my long draw, and so I have some. This is what's currently on my Asher traditional right now, and so I'm just going to be working on that, with the idea being I have a couple of skeins I've already finished. This is the last bit that I have. I have a big bat that I made that I'm spinning from, and this will probably get turned into, I thought maybe I would make a shawl and then dye the shawl, but I'm actually feeling the idea of having a big fluffy natural white shawl. So we'll see, but it's still on the wheel, and then it'll have to be plied, and so this will be another kind of goal, I guess. Currently, speaking of Green Goat Ranch, currently on my drop spindle I have my which one is this one? This is the meringue carding kit from the Animal Crossing collection, and so I've got 2 drop spindles full, and I'm working on my 3rd drop spindle, and then I'll be able to make a 3-ply out of those. And I've been working on this for a while. This is another one of those things that I'm ready to wrap up so I can enter the second half of 2024. And if I finish all this Coopworth I have, of course, I always have more Green Goat Ranch ready to go. And this is from the Fraggle Rock collection. This is a plying pair, and I like the plying pairs because I can just sit at my wheel, do like a short forward draw, and then have a 2-ply yarn when I'm done with that. I guess my stretch goal, I was watching Jillian Eve, her latest video. She did, she hand spun a rainbow gradient and then wove it into a shawl. And I'm not going to get into weaving. I have my little hand loom, but I did get these mill-ins from someone on Facebook, and it is Roy G. Biv rainbow, and so I'm trying to think of something I might do with this, whether I do just a straight up rainbow, or I was thinking of kind of breaking it up and like maybe weighing it and doing like 25% yellow with 75% orange and seeing like making it more of like an ombre. That might be a thought, or I might just keep them all separate. With my Vertices Unite, and now with this Pouf, I've gotten really into singles, and so I was like, oh, how nice would that be to have a bunch of like Roy G. Biv singles to do a shawl with, or the possibilities are endless. Or I was thinking of doing like, the rainbow, and I have so much of this Coopworth, I could do a rainbow and then ply it with white, and it'd be like, oh, the white clouds with the rainbow. I don't know, but I'm definitely gonna have to weigh all of this and then figure out what I want to do, because this is all I got, and so I don't know. I love a good rainbow though, so we'll see. Or this might end up being my last year I did the I did 100 days of drop spindling, but I did it with I can't think of the fiber company I used, but this could be like almost like an Advent kind of thing at Christmas time, and like spin a little bit every day, and then I could like see how far I get through the rainbow over the Christmas break. But I think that'd be tight too. I'm just gonna leave it there. Let me know in the comments, how are you feeling halfway through 2024? Are you ready to wrap up some things? What are your, are you looking back at your goals? That kind of stuff. Are you doing Tour de Fleece? Do you have a team? Yeah, let me know. Once again, this has been Candy Bee Knittin'. I'm Candy B. I be knitting. Obviously, I be spinning. You can also hit me up on Instagram at Rulude. I'm also at Rulude on Ko-fi. Until next time, peace.